This video is going to be discussing the TWID as of the 22nd of November. So obviously on a Thursday, so that's today. And just me going over it because I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of not doing videos myself that I should be making. But I have this uneasy high moral ground that I take where I'm like, I won't make videos for easy views. I won't do that. I won't do that. I'm not about that. And I've played that stance now for years upon years. But I miss out on so many people in the community because I don't. So that rule of me not making, in quotations, easy vids, because they are easy vids to make because I don't have to lift a finger on my controller, right? I just have to literally give you my thoughts on the TWID, and I can give you a lot of thoughts on it because once I read something and read between the lines on TWIDs, which I've been doing for years but never made videos about, I can tell you sort of straight away my thoughts, and I'll have something. And I haven't read everything about this TWAB, so which I'm going to refer to it as a TWAB for the rest of the video. So that's why we're making this video, because there's a lot of information in it, and I don't generally make TWAB videos. And I feel as though I should, especially ones with a lot of information. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it weekly, but from now on I might here and there do them. We'll see. So I'm not going to read the TWID word for word like some other people do. You're not a kid. It's not your bedtime story. I don't need to do that with you, right? But I can read certain things and then give you my thoughts on each section if you like. So this is a summary of what's going to be in this TWID. So their latest collab, new season artifact, which is what I'm interested in, changes to abilities next season, and exotic armors too, right? So these three things are very important to the game. Huge. Fireteam Finder, very important as well. New cutscenes added to the archives, right? Okay. Destiny 2 expansions are on sale, which should be more frequent in my opinion. Weekly player support reports, they do that every time, I believe. And the latest movie of the week, and art of the week picks or whatever. So the first thing they said in the TWID is they're announcing their latest collaboration with The Witcher. So these are Witcher sets, which this information was launched not today, the day before, but they're officially announcing it here, I suppose. So what do I think about it? Well, it doesn't matter because of the game and how it works with the universal ornaments and how you earn them and how silver's treated in the game as opposed to bright dust. This doesn't matter to me as a player because I'm not going to go and buy these. Not because I can't afford it. I probably could, but what does it matter if I can or not? We should be able to earn this via bright dust. So it should be a silver or bright dust price. It should be 6,000 bright dust per set. The silver cost of these is ridiculous. Like if I was to buy all three sets, is the equivalent of like an expansion on another game to buy. Somebody said to buy 3 sets is the same price as Cyberpunk's DLC, the fresh one. That's insane. So you can buy almost another game as opposed to buying these 3 sets. Now, most of you are only going to buy one, and it's the Titan mains that are going to buy it because the Titan set looks insane. The swords on the back, which look really cool. It depends on how the armor shades. If it shades poorly, then these sets aren't that good. Just saying that. Although the Titan set is very good. Hunter sets, whatever. The helmet's good. The cloak's not very good. The swords on the back are good. Are they worth the money that they'll be sold for? In my opinion, not. Not even the Titan set. There's so much armor in the game. You can put so much fashion armor together that you don't really need to be buying any sets with silver. I never do. But that's the collaboration anyway. So new artifact. It's high time we show you the upcoming season artifact perks so that you can be thinking about new builds. We are focusing on 3 elements, Solar Strand and Stasis. So they've upright and just told you right away, we want you to use these 3 elements. They're there, they're telling you, hey, use Solar, don't use Void next season. There's also a focus on rocket launchers, some new and very strong perks are revolving around ignitions and shatter, and even some beloved perks making a comeback. All in all, the Queen's Fall sensor allows for several outstanding combinations. So this is like this is meant to be like a mini Forsaken type thing where the Season of the Witch was like a mini Savathun's expansion season, if you like. It was Savathun's themed. This is going to be like Last Wish themed sort of thing, right? We don't know the exact detail. Well, there is some leaks, but I don't cover leaks. But this is the big thing, right? This is what I live for. This artifact mod system. Not that I'm a massive fan of it, but I live for it because it affects me greatly in endgame PvE. So we've got column 1, anti-barrier sidearm, unstoppable hand cannon, unstoppable bow, overload auto rifle, overload pulse rifle. Right, what's my first thoughts as a player? Bad for overload. This is poor, right? So overload pulse is good, you know. Looking at you, Outbreak perfected, and any other exotic pulses, Graviton Lance, that's good. Overload auto rifle's poor. It always has been poor. But there's certain autos that may be good for this. Generally, your rapid fire frames and like Sweet Business and stuff like that are good. Quicksilver Storm will be good because of the because of the shots and stuff. But auto rifles are poor for overload because the overload will just keep peppering you whilst you overload them. Auto rifles have historically been poor for overload champs. They're good for barriers and other stuff, but overload's not good. So there's that. Overload pulse, I think that's weird. I do think it's a weird perk, but it'll be interesting to pair with some exotic pulse rifles. But legendary pulse rifles, no, because legendary pulse rifles are terrible in the game. Unstoppable bow, right? So this is really... Why didn't they do something like unstoppable glaive or something? I know later on it's meant to be in that column if there was, but unstoppable bow, no, this is very generic. We've had unstoppable bow before. We've got Leviathan's Breath, but if you want to pair it with other sort of bows and say it's a barrier unstoppable GM, then like Taiku's can come into the play, or Tiku's Divination, Taiku's, and what's the other bow? The other solar bow, you know what I'm on about. So it opens up loadouts a little bit, but I'm not a massive fan. Unstoppable hand cannon, I love unstoppable hand cannon. I feel as though that fits hand cannons the best, either that or overload. So I actually don't mind that at all. Anti-barrier sidearm, right? So anti-barrier sidearm is going to be useless apart from one mod, apart from one gun. Notice there's only one barrier. This is bad. This is bad. It means that people are going to look at my loot. I don't care about loot at all. You can see I don't care about loot at all. I'm going to dismantle all this when I get back in the game, just to piss people off. No, I'm not going to do that. But seriously, I don't care about loot that much. So Forerunner is the big one because it's a sidearm. It's a mini Ariana's Vow. In actual fact, it's better than Ariana's Vow. This weapon is fantastic. So people use Forerunner next season. If you don't want to, then you use them as a solo player, Arbalist or Wishender. People are getting fed up with the old Wishender gameplay. So I'll be running Forerunner whenever there's barrier champs as much as possible. So that's one good take, but there's only one barrier mod. This is bad. Right, moving on to the second column because I don't want to waste too much time on that. So Flame, Fiber, and Freeze combines the Solar Strand and Solar Stasis Siphon mods into one. We've seen these types of mods before. Kindling Trigger. Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched combatants. This is going to be really good because you're going to be able to dip into legendary solar weapons that don't have any Scorch effects, say, right? Looking at or even a hand cannon, because you've got hand cannons, so you could... Depends on the champ mods and stuff, but this is sounding interesting because it's adding Scorch to a weapon that generally doesn't have incandescent or something, for example. Right, so that's interesting. Blast Radius. Rapid final blows with rocket launchers and grade launchers grant armor charge. So look at your wave frame GLs. Right, you're going to be able to get lots of armor charges with the GLs. The rocket launcher aspect, not too much, because you don't use rocket launchers on ads. You shouldn't be doing that, unless it's Eyes of Tomorrow, because you're wasting valuable heavy ammo. But the GL aspect of it, getting armor charges on kills, on rapid kills, I assume that's double kill at the very minimum, right? That's going to be good with the special GLs, the ones that sit in the special slots. That's actually very useful because they're used on ad clear. So Origin perk improves the benefits provided by the Sundering Nano Munitions. That's the new Origin trait, maybe, I don't know. Nanotech Tracer, etc., etc. Additionally, weapons with these traits are always overcharged. These perks don't generally work, or sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they're not interesting for me to talk about it too much. From whence you came. Increase ability damage to taken and scorn combatants. Right, this is insane. So we're getting taken spec. Increase ability damage to taken and scorn combatants, which means we're going to be fighting a lot of scorn. It's telling you, read between the lines, next season is all going to be all about taken and scorn. Damn, that's a good mod. You don't have to put it on your armor, remember? So you're going to have take. I wonder if that's going to be the equivalent of taken spec, or if it stacks with taken spec, right? So these are the things, read between the lines. Does it stack with it? We don't know. It might, but let's just see where that goes. So we've got Flint Striker, rapid solar weapons, precision hits, and rapid solar weapon final blows grant radiant. This is a huge one. So you're going to have radiant all the time with a solar primary, right? So there's no scout mods. Polaris Lance would have been fantastic. Well, it will be, but there's no mod, there's no scout mod, but there's other solar weapons that you can think of, solar primaries, right? Sunshot's going to be a good one because you got unstoppable hand cannon and stuff like that. That's just going to make Radiance a buff, all right? The fact that you're going to be able to get it, and if it resets the Radiant buff, right, then you're going to have uptime on Radiant. Might be too OP, this mod. We'll see where that goes. It's going to make Solar too strong, in my opinion, next season, but we'll see. While Radiant, deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs. Right, so this is now synergizing what I said. What did I say? If you follow me closely, you will know all the moves that I make and the things I say about elements, and that we should be able to make new elements to debuff enemies like in Warframe. But it's not. It's sort of, you're not making a new element, but if you've debuffed an enemy by another element, a Fireteam member has, then the guy who's radiant will do more damage. This is what we want the game to start to become, to start to strategize around. Have one guy run this element, another guy run that element. That's the future. They need to play in more to this and make these types of mods permanent in the game at some point. So this torch mod, imagine if it was a permanent, and then have one with different, one that's with void and arc centered those two or something. You could do all the elements. So that's interesting, and I like this. Heart of the Flame. Casting your solar super grants nearby allies radiant and increases the damage of your super for each nearby ally. This is team-based stuff, but that sounds OP. Origin perk, I'm not going to go over that. That's just about the overcharge of the origin traits that it states. Dragon's Vengeance. I don't know what that is. Right, wished into being. While your super is nearly fully charged, ability final blows spawn orbs of power, wearing Season of the Wish armor decreases super amount threshold. Right, so that's insane. So now you're going to have to farm a new armor set, which I'm a fan of because we haven't had to farm armor for ages. Now you're going to need to farm a new armor set next season. Now there's a bit of progression to the game again. You're going to want to get that because it's going to decrease super cooldown, and that's something that I would chase. So now we go to the next column, unraveling orbs. Picking up an orb of power grants strand weapons unraveling rounds. This is something similar to what we've had this season, but it was regarding tangles. I feel as though this is all right. Unraveling rounds is okay. It's decent, but you're not going to be using too much strand. It's going to be all solar. Pillar of Ice. Killing an encased combatant spawns stasis crystals. Right, well, there's been some stasis buffs, so this is going to play into that, which we'll come to when we get to it. Revitalize and Blast. Causing damage with a solar ability weakens champions and bosses for a short duration. Solar is looking so far to be the winner. It said Solar, Strand, and Stasis. So far, from what I can read from this, Solar is number one in slot. You got Well of Radiance, you got Hammer Titan, and you got Blade Barrage on a Hunter, which is also very potent with certain builds. This is going to be GMs all day. I'm thinking Solar GMs all day with this, right? So we'll just keep going. Stasis doesn't look impressive, but we'll keep going. Overload rocket launchers. Well, you can technically have overload rounds in rockets right now. If I just go to my Messi's vault stuff, So what's the name of the boots? Second filaments. That is the name of them. I just don't know which one it is. It's this one. So you get overload anyways via this, but that means you've got to wear that exotic. But I'm just saying you can technically get overload rocket now. So this is gonna be interesting. I'm not a massive fan of it, because why would you stun a champ with one rocket? It's a waste. You'd be better to stun with an overload pulse, then whip out your rocket. But when you whip out your rocket on that second stun, or after the first stun, it'll maintain some overload effect on the champ, so there's some utility there with it. I don't think it's that great. I think they should have done something else. Overload rocket just seems odd, but they're trying to give us something that we haven't had per se from the artifact system, so I understand, fair enough. Dragon's Bite. Breaking a combatant shield with a strand or a stasis weapon has a chance to suspend or freeze that combatant. Wearing Season of the Wish armor increases this chance. Again, you're gonna want the Season of the Wish armor. It's telling you there. This is PvP. So when it says combatant, it means PvP and PvE. So in PvP, when you break a shield, this will happen, I presume. In PvE, right, this is going to be champs. So this is insane what it said. With a strand or stasis weapon, has a chance to suspend or freeze that combatant. So imagine with the stasis exotic bow, Vergless Curve, which is actually starting to be good. And I made a video about it already telling you it was good before people forget. Wishender's Wishender, but if Wishender ever gets nerfed, Vergless Curve is fantastic. So imagine how that would do. Obviously, this is a stasis weapon, so this might do something. Aegis Scepter. When you do your ultimate and you put your super into the gun and it does the ultimate freeze, it'll be fantastic for barriers, etc. But you're not stunning them per se, so I don't know how that interaction will exactly work. But all of this is interesting. So column 5, Horde Shuttle. Damaging a unraveled target with a weapon occasionally spawns a Fredling. I'm not that too keen on Fredlings, like Fredling builds and stuff. They're okay on a Warlock, I suppose. I'm not too sort of fussed. And I don't really like, if you don't know, I don't really like Strand Warlock that much. It's okay, but Strand Titan and Strand Hunter are far better, just because of the super and stuff. Hail the Storm. Shattering encased targets and Stasis Crystals deals increased damage. Shattering a Stasis Crystal releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. That's doing a whole lot. I don't know the effect of this until I read the Stasis buffs. Razor Precision. While Radiant, Solar Precision Fire Blows cause combatants to ignite. Well, you've just got Razor Precision, and you've got Torch, and you've got, what's the other mod? Flint Striker. So you've got 3 mods based around Ignitions, Radiant, and Scorch. You've got everything going for Solar. It's going to be ridiculous. Solo Operative. Now, this is a massive one. Last time it was a 15% damage bonus. It doesn't say what it is this time, but I presume it will be the 15% damage bonus. Or is it 10? I think it was 15. I could Google that now, but it doesn't matter. It was 10 or 15. Next season, I presume it will be the same. This is massive because this is going to help you with dungeons that have tanky bosses. Looking at you, Spider the Watcher, and Ghost of the Deep. Those are the 2 worst dungeons for tanky bosses. Those 2 dungeons, if you're struggling with the soul flaws for them, you'll be able to get that. But also you'll get the new dungeon. See, they're launching a new dungeon with Solo Operative, which they've done that before. They've done it with Spider the Watcher, which, reading between the lines, tells me the new dungeon's going to have tanky bosses because it's going to be balanced around you having a Solo Operative. Think about it. It's going to be mini balanced around it. They're going to account for that you haven't Solo Operative, so that you're looking at 10 million plus HP for both bosses. Hopefully there is 2 bosses in the new dungeon. So this is a bad sign for the new dungeon, reading between the lines, but the mod itself is fantastic. It means they don't need to Fireteam balance because of this mod, so people aren't going to complain too much about tanky bosses. So there's 2 ways of looking at it, but I fear for the new dungeon and the HP of the bosses. So we'll just see. Argent Ordnance. This is a Charge with Light mod. Why are they giving us this? So wait, they take it away and now they're giving us it back. Firing a rocket launcher consumes 1 stack of armor charge, granting increase damage and reload speed until you reload or store your rocket launcher. It's very similar to what the old one was. But the old one, you could stack it 3 times up to 35% buff, I believe. They're giving us it back. It's so annoying because we lost all the Charger Light mods and now they're trickling them in on. It annoys me that this is in there. But it's also saying that they want you to use rockets. Is it also GLs? No, it's just rockets. Well, that's a shame. It should cover GLs as well, in my opinion, because they're 2 similar weapon types. Ability changes come next week. Right. So, like I say, I'm not reading it word for word. Ensuring that abilities, particularly those in our longer cooldown tiers, are meeting our intended cost to output ratio. Reducing cases or place of ability that exceed our power bar. Making first steps at Will Radiance and Ward of Dawn tuning. Right, how long have I said about Ward of Dawn getting buffed? I said about it last week, that it should. Taking a tune and pass on Stasis abilities with more to come in the future. Stasis is the worst class in the game right now at the moment, and you can't deny it, but I'm not going to read all their things because the video is going to be too long. I'll just read each bullet point. So it states, a perk that grants 10% great energy on activation results in cooldown reduction of 6.4 seconds to Fireball Grenade, but results in a cooldown reduction of 15.2 seconds for Lightning Grenade. So they're basically rebalancing the way that build crafting works for flat chunk of ability cooldowns and stuff. It means it's inconsistent, that's what they're sort of saying, and they're trying to standardise it. I need to see this in game also to comment properly. So like it says here, when players stack these build crafting elements together, grenade kickstart plus innovation plus absolution plus demolition is a chunk of energy fragment. It results in a long cooldown abilities having uptime. This is dramatically higher than what we intend for the potency level. So that's what it's sort of saying. So with Season of the Wish, we're taking the first step at addressing that problem. Starting in 7.3.0, the base passive cooldown tiers for the abilities will also influence the amount of chunk energy they receive from perks, which it should do. So if you rock on tier 10 discipline, it should. For our fast charging abilities, things are not changing, but as we process through the passive cooldown tiers into the slower changing abilities, that immediate burst of energy will be reduced to a floor, 50% of base of our slowest charging grenade and class abilities, and 60% for our slowest charging melee abilities. I don't like the way they're wording all this stuff. So here's what they're saying. Here's that same example under the new system. A perk that grants a base value of 10% great energy on activation results in a cooldown reduction of 6.4 seconds for Fireball Grenade and results in a cooldown reduction of 7.6 seconds, whatever. You know that I have a problem with abilities in the game as it is anyways, and they need to just nerf all abilities, cooldowns flat out. We need to go back. We're too powerful in the game right now, but I suppose that's got to be unpopular what I just said, because people are already saying, oh, they've nerfed Titan, they've done this. Well, we need to be nerfed a little bit. But they need to rebalance enemies as well, so there's a flip side to that. With Season of the Wish, we're only implementing the change for grenade, melee and class abilities. Perks that add super energy are unchanged. Well, I mean, you've got hands-on Ashes to assets, which those perks, you don't really need them anyways, but they are a nice icing on the top. Because when you solo, remember, your bullets are linked to super. So when you solo, you get tons of supers anyways. So say I ran a solo GM or a solo dungeon without Ashes to assets, it would have no bearing on the run. Because everything would be scripted with me. I would account for all that. So none of this makes no difference to me at all. So we're also excluding any perk that either intentionally grants a full refund like Knock 'em Down or targets only a single specific ability like Shinobu's Vow. These will still work identically to the behavior in the live game. Shinobu's Vow is obviously a fantastic little grenade build, skip grenade build on Arc Hunter. So we need to see how this plays out. I'm not going to go too much into it. So now we go on to Staying Alive. Right, so I'll just summarise it. We'll go from here. In short, player survivability at the top end is too high. Let's repeat that. In short, player survivability at the top end is too high. This is correct. Solar Titans, Banner of War Titans, Punch Dodge Arc Hunter, Warlock with your Sunbracers build and stuff like that. Or devoured a little bit, but actually people don't use Devour now, which I think it's on later on down in the article. And we need to find a better balance between the two extremes of enabling players to heedlessly dive into the fray or making it feel like long-range chip damage is the only option to clear an encounter. To that end, we're making an initial pass at tuning some of our top-end outliers, but we anticipate that this will be a process that takes place over many releases so that we can ensure that things are trending in a healthy way. For this first pass, we're targeting a small number of subclass keywords that we believe more strongly contribute to excessively survivability in combat: Woven Mail, Restoration, and Devour. Well, here's what I don't like about that, is that they made Woven Mail OP on purpose to sell you Lightfall, to sell you the new expansion. People will buy it because what's Strand about? Oh, right, it's got this Woven Mail. So they made it OP on purpose. They knew what they were doing. What did they close their eyes and say, let's put Woven Mail in the game? Oh, what buff did you put, Jimmy? I don't know, 65% or whatever. I'll just type maybe a bit higher. You know, did they do it with their eyes closed and then always said, oh, we need to put this in line? It's like, we knew Woven Mail was OP because it's like Protective Light, what Protective Light used to do, and they didn't like it in the game then. So why have they shipped Woven Mail as strong as it is now? It's made it ridiculous in the game. Restoration is, I think Restoration isn't as much of a problem as Woven Mail. All right, because there's a lot of, you've got to make it work with Restoration, and Devour isn't a problem at all, I don't think, in the game. How many solo GMs do you see with a Warlock with Devour? I mean, you do see them, but they're not that as frequent, right? So we've updated 7.2.0. We took a small stab at Woven Mail's PvE damage reduction, but with 7.3.0, we're reducing it a further 10%. While this is relatively small change, we want to evaluate it alongside some changes to Banner of War that you'll read about later on before taking any larger swings. So reduced damage resistance versus PvE combatants from 55% to 45%. Right, it should be down a little bit more. All right, it should be probably, because of how easy you can get Woven Mail, at the most 20%. But let's read on and see what else they've said. The Restoration thing, Restoration's heal rate is being reduced in both PvE and PvP. Similar to the Woven Mail case, we want to see how this feels sitting alongside some changes to Throne Hammer and Soul Invectors further down the line, whatever. So Restoration, reduced healing rate at Restoration ×1. So the old was 40, whatever, right? So the new is going to be slightly less. So we're going from 40 to 35. Again, we need to see this in-game. I'm a visual person. I need to see it in-game, but this doesn't seem if much of a nerf, if anything. PvP, I'm not interested in at all, which that doesn't look much different, but things are different in PvP. Reduced healing rate at Restoration ×2, 65 to 50. That's a little bit of a hit. I feel as though Restoration's still going to be decent. And I roll my eyes at this because I don't think, as I said, Restoration's as much of a problem as Woven Mail because there's no damage resistance there. There's just that health regen, that constant health regen. All right, so I feel as though that's not as much of a problem. And should they nerf it more? I mean, I don't know. We need to see how it is in the game. Last up is Devour, right? Which I'm a massive Devour person, especially Devour Warlock, whose potency is largely due to the ease of use of the Echo of Starvation fragment, which was initially developed when there were fewer orbs being generated, which is true. We're making a targeted change to Devour that excludes Voidwalkers, reducing its heal amount from 200 to 100. This doesn't sound good. Unless Feed the Void is equipped. So if Feed the Void is equipped, which is it's a Warlock exclusive, isn't it? See, I don't know if I've got any. I believe it's. So Feed the Void is exclusive to Warlock. Alright, other classes don't have it because it's an aspect. Other classes have Devour via Fragment, but not that. So that's what that's saying to you is that if you want to play Devour, Warlock is the way. Warlock is the Devour king, and I think that should be the case. So this is probably overall a decent change because it's going to mean that Titans and Hunters are nerfed for Devour, and I think that's right because a Warlock is meant to be. That's the identity of a Void Warlock. Titan can step into it, but Titans have Bastion. Hunters have Invis. They can't have... This is what it undervalues Warlocks if they can also have Devour just as good. So this is a good change. It's a balancing change, and I think they've done all right with that. Increased grenade energy regeneration per kill while Devour is active. This didn't need to happen, though, because you already get plenty of grenade energy anyways, but we'll see. This amount varies based on the type of target defeated, all right. So hopefully miners don't give you that much grenade energy back, but maybe Ultras and Champs do, which I'm fine with. Now also improves the strength of Devour's heal when equipped. Right, which it does technically, because it's gone from 100 to 200, so as opposed to not using Feed the Void. So this is going to be ongoing case, whatever, right? Let's move on. Sprint and slide melees. So let's just, like I say, this is all about, so let's just see what they've said on the bullet points. Sprint and slide activated melees can no longer be activated after the player fires the weapon during a slide. This is important for the old shoulder charge 1-2 punch shenanigans that people have done, all right, which makes sense. I don't think you should be able to combine a shoulder charge with a 1-2 punch shotgun type deal. And this also sounds a little bit PvP style type thing as well. I don't have much opinion on this outside of the 1-2 punch thing that I said. Alongside the change, we're also increasing the potency of Tempest Strike, which is a terrible arc mod, which has felt somewhere left behind, given the powerful synergy between Flow and State Lethal Current, which obviously is on the arc. Increased base damage from 110 to 125. This still isn't enough. Rework track and behavior to be more consistent at longer ranges. Again, it's not good enough. This is still going to be poor. It needs to be doubled at least. So people aren't going to... It's going to fall on deaf ears, this. Bond Hammer and Banner of War. So we're only halfway through this. I'll have to hurry up. With Season of the Witch, we released Banner of War, which has quickly jumped to the top of the aspect list for the Titans. For Titan players, it's currently equipped for nearly 20% of all Titan playtime for the Season of the Witch PvE activities. This is rivaled by only Into the Fray at 15% of playtime, which I do use that, which is Banner's natural pairing. We're very happy with the way Banner of War has supported the Berserker class fantasy and don't want to reduce the ability to do so when at maximum range. However, it's currently too easy to build up to that maximum charge very quickly in content with sufficient density of combatants, especially with the help of your teammates. With Season of the Wish, we're making a change to slow down the charge progression, increasing the number of defeats required to level the banner up at each tier. As part of this change, we're also slightly increasing the time extension granted by each enemy defeated to compensate. This is when they make changes like that, the outcome's just the same as now when they do that. So when they say, when they make these small changes like that, like let's read what it says. Increase the number of enemy defeats necessary to level up the banner by approximately double and increase the amount of time added per enemy defeat at each level to compensate. These values vary depending on the type of target defeated. Fix an issue where unpowered swords were being granted as a damage boost by Banner of War. So this is nonsensical. So you're gonna have to kill double the amount of enemies, right? But you get more time anyways. So it's gonna make the situation where you're still using Banner. So I know people want to keep it strong, but there's other elements in the game. Don't forget about your Void Titans. So I don't know what to say about that really, because they're buffing it and then giving you something, buffing it and giving you something. It ends up being the same or very similar. Let's talk about Bonk. Prior to Soul 3.0, Throw Hammer was in the Code of Devastator subclass, I remember, which was military, which didn't have much in the way of survivability tools other than picking up a hammer after hit. This meant that players needed to be significantly more careful in their play and generally weren't as capable as standing in a champion or boss's face with impunity while they chucked a hammer at its torso over and over again. While this makes for a fun visual, we don't believe that this behaviour is healthy for the game. No, it isn't. So alongside the changes to restoration detail above, we're looking more fundamentally at how throw and hammer functions. We started this section off talking about the relationship between potency and uptime, and how the rules of the sandbox begin to break down when those don't match up for a given ability. Throw and hammer isn't currently matching up. We don't want to remove the full energy refund on pickup because the conventional gameplay loop is still really fun. Yeah, I agree with that. But we do want to add some downtime between throws to discourage the stand next to boss. Yeah, definitely. So that picking up a throw and hammer will now return its energy over a short duration rather than instantly. We're also increasing the projectile's tracking strength so that the players who choose to chuck at longer ranges are more consistently rewarded for taking that risk. Right. So this comes back to my solar flawless goes to the deep. When I discussed this, there was something wrong with the hammer, which I refused to use it. Because in Ghost of the Deep, you were just missing your hammer, and I was like, what's going on console? There's something wrong with it. The aim assist is gone. Because it used to be so sticky, the hammer. So then something happened, they might have stealth nerfed it or something. The hammer was terrible sometimes with aim assist on console. And then, although it's still OP, it's still very OP with the infinite restoration. But I showed you a way of not using the hammer and still getting the restoration. Because uncharged melee is Grand Scorch. Therefore, you don't need the hammer for the restoration build on Titan anyways. So I've just showed you a way around. I've actually just told you a loophole around the hammer. Just told you it there and then. So this doesn't matter because I have a build surrounding it. See, this is where I go back to. Always look at the little details of things that don't matter in a meta, because when the meta changes, guess what? You knew something that other people didn't. So, to repeat, Scorched, uncharged melee abilities on a Solar Titan with restoration procced grants more restoration, providing you got the right fragments on and stuff. That will work exactly the same. In actual fact, it's more satisfying to use just your fist on ads as opposed to the hammer when you miss it. But they have said the aim assist on the hammer is going to be a little bit more sticky, basically. So it says here, when picked up now returns melee energy over 1.4 seconds rather than instantly. Right. I don't know why it's not just 1 second or even 2, but all right, that's a way of balancing it. Increase projectile tracking strength by about 20%, right? That's also good. So that's a good little change. In my opinion, that's decent. I think that's good. They're trying to address Solar Titan. Solar Titan is a problem in the game. If you don't believe me, go back to your week 1 Solar Flawless Goes to the Deep and you'll see all the Titan mains rocking Solar Titan. Why? Why were they on Solar Titan? Because they love Solar? Yeah, a little bit, but also because they know how OP it is. So I like this change, but people aren't going to like it. But I think it's good. It's healthy for the game, and I'm all about health for the game, not so much power fantasy. I'll talk about that at the end, I suppose. So part of this equation is also Solar Invictus, which offers reliable safe havens in sunspots. Similarly to our thrown hammer changes, we don't want to discourage players who don't want to move from position to position, advance them through the combat space, but we do not want to make sure that players who bunker in dangerous positions, such as at the feet of a boss, aren't able to do so for too long. Yeah, that's fair enough. So, like, you 1.4 seconds, that's good. So you could do the hammer, right? Then do an uncharged melee, because you can bind different buttons to charge and uncharge. Maybe do 1-2 punch shotguns, add in a tractor, or add something else, bit of slug shotgun swapping or something, and then go back to your hammer. So there's going to be some ways and means around it. Reduce maximum sunspot duration from 20 seconds to 12. This will be fine because you can reproc it very easily on a Titan, for example. This duration is only ever reached when the player is standing inside the sunspot. Sunspot duration without the owner standing inside it remains unchanged at 5 seconds, but there's a sunspot build. If we go to Daymare, it doubles sunspot duration, so this might see a bit of play. It is called Phoenix Cradle. So as long as this works, then don't worry about sunspots. You're still going to be able to use it. This is good because it means other exotics will come in the light. Well of Radiance and Water Dawn, right? So this is massive. We've updated 3.4.0. We made a change to our super cooldowns playing Well of Radiance and Water Dawn in the fastest recharging tier. That decision was largely based on their kill potential versus supers that deal burst damage or allow you to roam the field. That's PvP based though. So they've made a decision just on PvP. That's what it is. The game has changed significantly since then, and with changes to Trials of Osiris, Domination as the game mode, and shorter round times in general, we want to reevaluate their placement. In Season of Wish, we're increasing their base cooldowns by 1 tier, matching the passive cooldowns of some of our burst supers. This has no bearing on solo play endgame, by the way. This is very PvP sort of talking, because you can get so many supers in PvE. So this here, increased base cooldown from 417 to 455. This has no effect at all on PvE. Like, moment-to-moment gameplay, you're hardly going to notice this. Maybe on like a Phoenix Protocol build, you'll notice it. But seriously, you're still going to get plenty of bubbles if you use it. You're still going to get plenty of wells, because there's loads of orb generation in PvE. So this is more PvP. This is hitting PvP, which I have no interest in at all. So on a longer time frame, we're evaluating well and wards place in that sandbox more fundamentally. These two supers are currently operating in too similar of a space, leaving little room for them to breathe on their own. Well ratings in particular offers too much, and its effective invulnerability is not something we believe the sandbox can or should continue to support. We're not making further changes to well or ward with Season of the Wish, but we have to tweak future changes, plan to reduce well's dominance in PvE and push the gameplay space of these two supers further apart, which they do need to do. We'll provide more details close to the time. All right. So the near and slightly farther future of Stasis. A week and a half ago, Stasis turned 3 years old. A lot has happened in that time. We've seen massive change in the sandbox, blah, blah, blah. Starting Season of the Wish and continuing the final shape, we're making a number of quality of life changes to improve Stasis' reliability in combat. And we're reevaluating some of our previous tuning changes for Stasis abilities with the goal of bringing them up to the current abilities power bar, which they need to do. Let's start with the fragment sweep. For this release, we focused on our stat bonuses and penalties, removing those that felt unnecessary, tweaking them to make underperforming picks a little more attractive, or shifting them to a better suite of gameplay for the fragment. Before I read these, when Stasis came out, when we were doing the triple 100 stat builds, because it was popular at one point, it's not really popular nowadays because you don't even need triple 100 stats. But when it was, everyone was running Stasis because you got a lot of stat bonuses from the fragment. So it was very easy to get triple 100 stats, especially with powerful friends and stuff like that. So Stasis has always felt decent with stat bonuses. There's lots of them that give you bonuses. So I don't see this as, this is just a sort of an extra buff, but it isn't really changing what Stasis is. Stasis is still poor on a lot of things in the game, but we'll read on. So Whisper of Hadrons removed -10 strength penalty stat. You don't need strength on Stasis much, if I'm being honest. So this has no bearing. Whisper of Impetus now provides +10 resilience. Massive, huge. I love fragments that give +10 resilience because it means you can put your stat points in another stat, because resilience is the most important stat in PvE and will be until they ever adjust it. Whisper of Shards no longer gives +10 resilience. Why? Because we're going to use shards, so I don't see why they've done that, but that's fine. Stat penalty changed from -10 mobility and -10 intellect to -20 strength. For what? This seems so random. Whisper of Bonds removed -10 discipline penalty. Right, well I don't use that much because you don't need supers that frequently. I think that's the super build fragment. So it's like, yeah, so far I'm not interested, but let's keep going. For our hunters, we're making changes targeted at improving the reliability of Wither and Blade in all content and Winter Shroud in PvE. Wither and Blade now travels faster, has longer lifetime, bounces, and additional time before expiring, and it's more consistent in finding a target both before and after bounce. Wither and Blade's the melee ability of Strand. So increase the projectile speed by 10%, maximum projectile lifetime by 10%, maximum bounce count from 2 to 3. That's nice. Because you do use your on Stasis, you can't, I know I just said you don't need much strength on Stasis, which you don't. But when you do get it on a hunt, it's quite nice to throw it, and it's quite satisfying. So I don't mind it. It's better than the Strand Hunter melee ability. I'm not on about the grapple. I'm on about just this flat-out little dagger that you throw. The Strand Dagger, that's terrible. Wither and Blade is at least better than that. So this is a big one. Winter Shroud is getting updated to be more forgiving against PvE combatants. With a longer slow duration and increased area of effect, we're also increasing its slow stack count against PvE combatants from 40 to 60, enabling things like 6 Coyote to be more easily freeze enemies for a freeze to occur more quickly after a quick dust failed dodge combo. So this is where you dodge and slow enemies. So increased slow stacks applied PvE combatants from 40 to 60. I believe it's 100 when they freeze or whatever. I believe it follows the same rules as what Incandescent follows, like the Scorch and stuff. You know, when he gets to 100, they ignite and stuff. Same with Stasis. When he gets to 100, they freeze. So you're already halfway to a freeze. Because it's just said that, from 40 to 60. So you're more than halfway. So it's a little bit of a buff. But, right, we read on. Increased slow duration applied to PvE combatants from 4 to 8 seconds. That's massive. That is a huge buff. That's a double buff on slow duration. Do you not understand that the Revenant Super applies slow stacks? So that's going to buff to that, and it's going to buff to the Stasis turret. It's going to buff to a lot of things. Duskfield nades are so good. There's a Duskfield nade build on a Hunter. The slow stacks turrets give slow stacks to enemies. That's just buffed your turret double. So that is a massive buff. This slow stack thing, the one for the dodge, I don't care about that, but I do care about this one, the slow stacks. Increased slow detonation size versus PvE combatants from 8 meters to 9 meters. That's also a nice little buff. Could have been a little bit more, maybe 12. So for Titans, we're walking back a few changes made in hotfixes to Shiver Strike and Glacial Quake that no longer fit the current sandbox. Actually, Titan Behemoth's secretly good in the game right now. I could make a video about that, but I probably won't have time, but it's actually secretly good now. Anyways, we've returned the ability to freeze nearby players on cast with Glacial Quake. We've reduced radius from its previous version, making casting it in close quarters significantly safer than its low iteration. For Shiver Strike, we've restored its slow application to players on hit. This is more PvP stuff. This was previously removed in a world where collision damage was still lethal to players. Now that targets don't need to be able to air brake with a movement mode, yada yada yada. I'm not going through all that because I don't care about PvP. So now slows players on hit, a behaviour previously removed in hotfix. Fix an issue where Shiver Strike would not function where the melee kickstart armor mod. Yeah. I'm not interested in this. Now freezes nearby players on cast. Is this just PvP players? Why does it not say the word combatant? I believe it does anyways. It sort of freezes. It spawns in all the stuff. The Glacial Quake Super. It spawns in loads of crystals and stuff. But that seems to me it's talking about PvP. On cast, freezing impulse size versus players has been reduced. This is PvP. We're also implementing a change to improve Howl of the Storm seen consistently against players. Again, PvP still. Fix an issue where Howl of the Storm was not consistently freezing targets in contact with created stasis crystals. That's right. So for Warlocks, we're making a couple of quality of life improvements to Frost Pulse and the Blast. That's the melee or whatever. Shade Binary is a strong pick already, and we don't feel like it needs much of a push. So we're focusing on areas where it can sometimes fail the reliability test. Frost Pulse's area of effect is increased against PvE combatants, and we're improved its network performance. Frost Pulse significantly increases consistency against fast-moving targets. This change involved rework and how the ability applies. Freeze to target, reducing the latency between the ability is activated and when the target is actually frozen. Right. So this is PvE. Freeze detonation size versus PvE combatants increased from 8 to 8.5 meters. Half a meter is not enough of a buff. All right, why are we doing these little buffs? They need to buff it massively. Like, so far, I'm not convinced that Stasis is going to be good next season, despite the clickbait thumbnails I've saw from the last 3 hours on YouTube of people. So far, what I've read isn't... The only thing that I've saw is the slow effects doubled, which is huge. But so far, I'm not impressed. Right, so what's this, the Blast? Increased detonation size when impact environment from 1.5 to 2 meters. Again, it's too much of a small change. Shade Binders, we also directly benefit from a tuning change being made to Glacier Grenade, which is a good grenade, by the way, very good. Currently, Blake Watch's cooldown is directly tied to the base cooldown of Glacier Grenade, regardless of what grenade you have equipped. With update 7.3.0, Glacier Grenade's cooldown is being reduced, which will also translate to a lower Blake Watcher cooldown. What did I just say about slow stacks? So now the turret's buffed even further, right? Reduced base cooldown from 152 seconds to 121. Boom, there you go. You've just got your Blake Watcher build back. You've just got your turrets back. Although they were kind of usable now, because you saw me do some solo GMs with it. Right, so we're back on top with some turret builds, which the turret build, Out of the Stasis PvE subclasses has the strongest neutral game, the Warlock turret build. And that's going to be back. So that has, overall, that's got a huge buff. Because the slow stacks is doubled, and the base cooldown is not halved, but it's reduced. The cooldown penalties for Dustfield Grenade and Cold Snap Grades when Bleakwatch is creeped have also been updated, so their cooldown times match the new Glacier Grenade cooldown. So you're getting buffed to grenades here. While Cold Snap's grenades reliability has significantly improved with our recent passes, there are still instances where it can fail to meet expectations. So fix an issue where the seeker was not consistently created in the direction the projectile was moving after a bounce. Yeah, sometimes they're inconsistent. This is why people say to me, why don't you use your Cold Snap Grenade when you use the double? Right, what's the name of the exotic? Whatever it is. So this is linked to Cold Snap. People say, pop down my turret, then throw a Cold Snap. No, I don't, because I'm wasting a charge. You might get it back. You might not. It might fumble. This is why I say to people, Cold Snap Grenades, no, just use it for the double turret effect. Don't worry about it. But with the reducing cooldown rates and stuff, then you may want to throw Cold Snap now more so than what we used to, because you get 2 charges. But you'd also obviously still throw your turrets. To be honest, a turret does everything for you. The Cold Snap's whatever, really, to me. So increased arm and shape size from 0.9 meters to 1.4. That could be big for a Cold Snap. Because Cold Snap, it's in a small localized area, so that's quite a bit. Half a meter is a lot to that, actually. Track and strength now ramps down from full strength to 0 over the course of the grenade's lifetime, rather than immediately turn off after the seeker had reached lifetime, whatever. So finally, we're increasing the bonus damage that special weapons deal to frozen targets by a small amount to help make shattering enemies feel more consistent. Increased special ammo weapon damage bonus versus frozen targets from 5% to 10%. Not big of it. It should have been more. It should be like 20%. But we move on. These aren't the only changes for Stasis that we have in the works, and we have some long requested changes for a future release that we'll discuss once they're closer. Here's a quick sneak preview. A new Stasis keyword we're tentatively calling Frost Armor. Right, this is huge. Right, look at that. They always tease you and not give you the stuff right away. Frost Armor, this is better than everything else you've mentioned just about, apart from the turret buff. Right, so why you give me this next season? Why are we having to wait? So look, I hate waiting in games. Aimed at addressing some of the player feedback regarding survivability when running Stasis, particularly when not using Whisper of Rhyme and Whisper of Chains. Additionally, tuning changes and reworks to existing Stasis fragments, adding additional behavior to the harvest aspects. So tuning next week, blah, blah, blah. Right, so there's some exotic armor changes. So let's just go through it quickly now because the video's already long. Throwing Knife now grants super energy ranging between plus 2.5% and 5% depending on the enemy type killed. That's whatever. Knife kills now grant a stack and damage bonus. So 30%, 60%, 100% for 5 seconds. That's nice. But knife kills, I mean, yeah, the fan knives on Blade Barrage is nice. Dodge, not the super, I mean the knives itself, but the super is also good. Dodge and refreshes the duration. So there might be some knife builds going about. Stompies. So remove requirement to have full glass ability energy to benefit from the movement bonuses. Reduce the airborne lateral acceleration bonus. Now provides damage resistance against combatants while airborne. So that's a big one, that one, with the Stompies. But the rest of it, I'm not too bothered about it. It's this bit. Damage resistance in PvE. Trick Slaves. The sidearm damage bonus now persists for 5 seconds after your shield begins to recharge. Sidearm kills extend the damage bonus duration by 3 seconds and completely reload your sidearm from reserves. The damage bonus has been reduced in PvP. Right, I'm not bothered about that at all. And if a PvP comes up, I don't talk about it. So this is going to be good with Forerunner because it's anti-barrier sidearm and Forerunner is going to be best in slot. Apart from like Wishend. If we care to think that Wishend and Arbalest don't exist, then Forerunner is like probably third best in slot, right? So this would be decent with Forerunner right away. Now applies 20 slow stacks to enemy players and 40 slow stacks to PvE combatants, the Bombardiers. There is a mini build going around about the Bombardiers, but it's not something that I'm massive on. But that might be good with the slow stack dodge that they mentioned earlier that got buffed. So there might be a little build in there somewhere. But we need to see how that plays, because there's so many better exotics than Bombardiers to use. Right? You've got the running boots. What are they called? I'm starting to forget all the names because there's so many exotics in the game to remember them all. So your Frosties. So you're not your Stompies, but your Frosties. I love this with Stasis. Right? You've got Star Eater skills. Where are we at here? So Star Eater skills. Lucky Pants if you're using a hand cannon. Right? But a hand cannon would be nice with Stasis. It generally is. But you've got so many other better exotic boots for the hunter. You know, so why would you really use them? Like, unless there's a playback loop. So Triton Vice. Increased glaive melee damage bonus while surrounded to plus 100% for both PvE and PvE, up from plus 30% in PvE and 10% in PvP. So I used Triton Vice recently and I didn't like it at all because there's no survivability with it. It doesn't work with any fragments. So Triton Vice is in the needs. Whereas Symphoceps, people call Symphoceps with glaives, but Symphoceps works beautiful with glaives because it procs fragments. It procs health regen and stuff like this. Triton Vice on a hunter, you want to try solo with Triton Vice. It's not very good. You're getting a lot of benefits, but there's no survivability with it. So Triton Vice, whilst good, not that good. And even after this, I'd still rather use a Symphoceps Titan with glaive. Even if the damage bonus is lower, I'm still going to get more damage. I would still survive longer, which technically means more damage, even though it's a less buff, whatever it is. 50% or whatever it is, I'm not sure. So prison kills now with Celestial Nighthawk, super energy. Now grants super energy ranging between 1.5% and 4.5%. This is what it used to do, but it wasn't kills, it was hits. So we're on the right track for getting Nighthawk somewhere, and I've showed you in a solo GM how good Nighthawk can be with debuffs and stuff. And to mention, Celestial Nighthawk actually works with kinetic surges. So your summon pistol that you summon on the super, it says summon a pistol or flame and light or whatever it says the description. If you don't believe me, I'll read it. If I've got, I don't know what I'm doing here. It doesn't matter. But anyways, yeah. So kinetic surges work with it. So when you stack that with some debuffs or radiant as well, which you're going to be able to easily get radiant, there's going to be a little Celestial Nighthawk build coming up. It's not going to be as good as you hope because a lot of you are like Titan mains, like with the Strand and the Hunter's Strand, and you're going to be like, well, this still isn't good enough. Now, and I'll be like satisfied with it because I love the Celestial Nighthawk. So I'm going to be quite satisfied with it. A lot of you are going to, day one, you're going to put it on and you're going to be like, oh, this still isn't good enough. But to me, it will be, you know? So it's what you pick. So Titan, 7% enclosure. Increased size and damage of the explosion. Kills with the exotic explosion will now trigger an additional explosion. Its 7% enclosure is decent, but Symphoceps is better. But we'll move on. So Peregrine Greaves, this is an exotic I used to use a lot. You now have to be airborne for a brief time before the exotic effects will apply. That's bad because it was already hard to proc it. It was already kind of weird to proc it. So here we go. Damaging champions, tormentors, or mini bosses with a shoulder charge deals further increased damage and refunds your melee energy. By how much? Why do they do this? They always do this. They never tell you how much. We need to know a number there before I can say yes or no. But I did try Peregrine Greaves because I tried loads of builds and it was terrible this season. It didn't do anything to champs. So let's see what it does next season. So Worm God Caress. This is a broken exotic. The Beneficed exotic effect has been reworked. It now has a meter that increases with melee kills and finishes and decays over time, which was good because the time was ridiculous. It was only like 4 to 5 seconds or something silly. The meter is broken up to 5 seconds, which provides escalating melee and glaive melee damage bonuses. The upper end of the meter also provides escalating weapon damage bonuses. This sounds like a good rework. As the meter decays, it passes back through the earlier tiers rather than deactivating immediately. The meter decays more quickly the more full it is. This sounds like a good change. Fusion grades impacts now unstoppable, stun unstoppable champions. So this means you don't need to run an unstoppable weapon in a solo GM or any GM with a Fireteam, whatever, if you've got Ash and Wake on, which there's going to be solo builds next season. So that's something to look at. Sim Percept, so this is the massive one. While we wanted to bring the generic melee bonus down to a bit to give space for other more specialized melee exotics to shine in their specific niches, we felt it was safe to bring Sim Percept glaive melee bonus back to a substantial amount. Right, this is what I was saying. This is good. We have also swapped the increased melee lunge range for increased weapon handling and reload speed. So yes, so there's no lunge with Sim Percepts now, but you're getting reload, so that's good. The lunge was never a thing anyways. It wasn't that was more PvP. In PvE, you didn't need the lunge. You're close enough to the enemy anyways, so that doesn't matter. Now improves weapon handling and reload speed while surrounded. That's a good buff. Reduce the PvE surrounding melee glaive damage bonus to 165 was 200%. So they've nerfed the melee damage, but it's still gonna be usable, more than usable. It's only 35% nerf. So don't worry about it. Titan mains. That's still okay. Increase glaive melee bonus damage to 100% from 50%. So now glaives are buffed with Titans. They're already good with Titans. People don't agree with me, but they already are good now. They're going to be even better. This is a good exotic. Precious Scars. Kills with weapons matching your subclass now apply Restoration Tier 1 for 1.5 seconds in PvP, and 3 seconds in PvE. So that's going to be good because Restoration's been hit a little bit. We'll have to see how that plays. But I don't mind Precious Scars. So that's getting a rework because it just used to give you a small bump of HP, which was okay, but not that good. This sounds like it's going to be better. So now Warlock. Right, so the Balados Wraith Weavers. This is the super exotic, I believe, for the Warlock. If I have a look. That's it. It's the super exotic for the Stasis. So now when you cast a Frost Pulse Rift, nearby allies gain a T2 Stasis Surge weapon boost for 10 seconds in PvE and 5 seconds in PvP. They also gain a 50 HP overshield. That's good for Fireteam play. So you're going to see more Stasis Warlocks. The Stasis damage bonus provided to allies by Winter's Wrath. Shockwave is now the T4 Stasis Surge weapon bonus, which is good. When your Winter's Wrath ends, you gain the Surge. This is like the Arc Helmet on Titan. That'll be good. This will be good. My worry is the damage that the super does. Casting your super now grants Q a tier 3 for you and your nearby allies. Apotheosis fails getting reworked. After your super ends, you now temporarily gain increased melee and grenade energy for 8 seconds. Right, so that's also good. That's actually really good. So there might be some build there. Felwinter's Helm. Move the size of the weaken burst and duration of weaken up 1 tiered against all targets except for finishes against bosses, which retains the maximum size and duration. So this sounds like a buff. Felwinter's Helm's niche, but in certain scenarios it's OP because it provides a debuff with Warlock having good uptime on buffs. Melee kills now grant Q at tier 3 and restoration tier 1 for 8 seconds. Finishes now grant the same. So I've already said about Can't See Arm, that's how good it is. Glaives on a Warlock. If not, probably better than a Titan. Well, on the same par as it. So that's insane. Can't See Armlets was already good. Aeon Swift, Aeon Safe, all the Aeon exotics all receive the following changes. So I'll just read them. So rapid precision hits provide quicker reload your weapon, swap speeds, and the bonus now lasts for 10 seconds. No longer grants bonus melee grenade energy or super energy on stunning a champion or defeating a boss or mini boss. Instead, stunning a champion of rapid precision hits against champions, elites, or mini bosses will mark them for your allies. Allies deal plus 20% more damage to marked targets. That's insane. When a target is first marked, nearby Aeon cult allies who do not have the sect equipped gain grenade energy and melee energy. So this is something I don't use much, but in Fireteam play they are important. Nearby Aeoncle allies who do not have the Sector of Insight role equipped no longer gain a bonus to weapon damage for a short time. Instead, they gain a burst of super energy. Depends how much. Now provides damage resistance against combatants when an ally dies or is resurrected. So that's pretty nice. When you cast your super, nearby allies no longer gain an instant burst of healing or an overshield. Instead, nearby critically wounded allies gain damage resistance from combatants as long as they stay near you. Nearby Aeoncle allies who do not have the Sector Vigor role equipped will also recover class ability energy more quickly. So, you know, there's builds with that, but that's all Fireteam stuff. So I'm not too focused on that stuff. I already know that the power of the Aeon Gauntlets. So armor mod changes. This TWID is massive. We're at the last bit now. So I'll just read the buffs, heavy or the nerfs, whatever. Heavy handy firepower and Reaper. These now have a 10-second cooldown for generating orb power. So they've nerfed these massively. These have been nerfed. That's probably good. It was silly that you could make so many orbs like this. Reaper also requires a kill secure within seconds of using your class ability, which that's what it used to be. The old style mod of that during Charge of Light used to be a kill after a dodge or a class ability usage would give you it would give you an elemental well, it wouldn't be an orb. So they're going back to what it used to be kind of thing. That's fine. Reaper's still going to be usable. So that's good. Reaper's a bit more important to use now over heavy-handed probably. But you're still going to make orbs, but it was good that they've done this. Melee Kickstart, Grenade Kickstart, and Utility Kickstart now provides between 16 and 45% ability energy and requires at least a single armor charge to be consumed. This is good because these mods weren't working all that good rate. If I'm being honest, when I was using them, I was using bolts from detonation. Didn't need to use Grenade Kickstart. 2 bolts from detonations with a double bomber on your class item works good enough. You weren't needing to use the Grenade Kickstarts and stuff. You would put a loader on instead, depending on what was going on, or you were using your heavy-handeds. So they're buffing them a little bit. So I think they should because they weren't all that great. I never used melee kickstart. I used grenade kickstart sometimes, but I wasn't that big on them. But now that that's happened, then I'll maybe be using it a bit more. Momentum transfer, balls from detonation, impact induction, and focus and strike now provide 12%, 17%, 20% ability energy for 1 to 3 stacks, respectively, and require a powered melee attack. So I don't know what it is right now, so we'll have to see, but I'm a massive fan of balls from detonation. Impact induction is a good one as well with certain builds. So we'll see how these play out, but these mods, I like these more than the Kickstart mods because they don't rely on armor charges. They just work. Outreach and Bomber now provides the same. So we have just 12%, 17%, 20% ability energy for 1 to 3 stacks. So I'm a big fan of these 2 mods because they don't rely on the armor charges, like I said. Outreach, Bomber, and Distribution. Outreach and Bomber now provides 12, 17, 20, the same, what I've just said. Distribution now provides 4 to 6 to 7% ability energy. That's how it stacks. Distribution I didn't use as much because it doesn't give you enough energy. It's more balanced, which you never really want to use a balanced subclass like that. You want to focus on one of like either grenade or melee, depending on. So distribution, I wasn't a big fan on it. Energy provided is further reduced based on the cooldown of the class ability used, which is good. With the shortest cooldown, reducing it by 60%. So now your stats matter more. So the artifice armor and stuff like that matter more. Your triple 100 stat builds matter a little bit more. So we believe the changes are healthy, etc. So this is what they're saying about the Fireteam Finals. So I'll just read it. After almost 2 years of hard work, we will start Fireteam Finals beta test shortly after Season of the Wish launches, starting on November 30th. Players will have access to the first public raid stress test of the new group fighting tool. We gather data to help get things working. So it's going to be a beta in the game. The first test will focus only on raids. Be aware that this is one of the most ambitious launches we've had for Destiny in a long time, so please be patient with us and your feedback so we can now work the gremlins out of the system. Our goal with this launch is clear: to ensure Fireteam find its scales properly for millions of players and to deliver a world-class LFG tool for all activities in the near future. We have a lot more to share about this in the article dedicated to the Fireteam Finder. So this is the cutscene, right? The updates that they're providing, right? So there's that. So the rest of it, I'm not going to cover too much. I don't really want to go on that because this video is far too long as it is. But they've done so much changes that someone like me can think. So my overall thoughts on this are, this is too expensive. I'm not going to buy it. I don't recommend that you should, although the design's good. The artifact mods are a bit weird, with only being one barrier mod available. We need to know what GMs are up, but Overload Auto being a loss. Unstoppable Bow is too safe. We've had that mod far too many times. Overload Pulse Rifle is something new that we haven't had. I don't know if we've ever had it, but it's going to work well, the Overload Pulse Rifle, with exotic ones. These mods, some of these mods are fantastic, but the champ mods aren't very good this season. Ability changes. So with the nerfs to Strand Titan, then it doesn't matter too much because they're giving you something and then taking away with the other hand, so that it just means that you're getting double the amount of kills to get the same thing going for Strand Titan. The Woven Mail nerf makes no difference. 10% is 10%. In GMs, it'll make a bit of a difference. Those people who are speedrunning solo GMs, they're going to feel it. The average player isn't going to feel the 10% nerf. It should have been lower, in my opinion, but that's what it is. Restoration, I feel as though you won't feel that either. And they're buffing other exotics to counter that for the restoration, like Karnstein armlets and stuff like this. Well, that gives you Q or whatever. But Devour's getting a weird balance, and it's going to be King on Warlock to run Devour, and Titan Hunter are going to be less potent on Devour builds, which in my opinion should be the case. Sprint Slide doesn't really matter. I've spoke about the Bonk Hammer thing. How to get around it. How to get around this is to just not run Hammer. You don't need to use it. There's a video, I've got the footage, there's a video of me showing you that you don't even need to use the thrown hammer. You might even want to use a shoulder strike. Alright? There's a video out there about it. Keen-eyed viewers will know what I mean. Most of you won't know what I mean. But there's a way around all this. Just use uncharged Scorch melee attacks to get the same playstyle as a thrown hammer. The only thing about it is it won't melt a boss as good, but it'll melt all the enemies and champs as well. It'll be fine. Soul Invictors have said a way around that. There's more information to be revealed around these two buffs, Well Radiance and Bubble. The Stasis Changes are really weird, and I don't see anything being king apart from the Stasis Hunter Revenant on certain builds and a Stasis Warlock. And Behemoth is already decent in the game. But I don't know if these changes are going to be good enough. The slow stacks is a big thing, but ultimately the supers don't do enough damage. The Warlock Shadebinder super isn't doing enough damage, and there was nothing said about that super getting a buff. The Gauntlets are getting a buff or whatever they're named, right? The Ballydors or whatever. This is getting a little bit of a buff, but you're going to want to use turrets anyways. So you're going to go double turret build. But, I've spoke at length about all this. The Titan Synthoceps nerf, don't worry about that. It's actually getting a buff with glaives. But it's getting a melee damage nerf, right, from 200% to 165. Alright, that doesn't matter. You're still going to want to run Synthoceps just because of its easy proc. It procs easy. But so does the Wormgod Caress now. See, Wormgod Caress is a higher skilled exotic than Synthoceps, but no one used it because of the low cooldown rate. Only particular people who wanted to do solo one phase of boss because you got a higher damage bonus and stuff. This is getting a rework, so now you might find Worm God Titans out there more frequent. That's the change I see. Peregrine Greaves, they haven't said how much. It's an annoyance. This is good with the Ashen Wake, means you don't have to run Unstoppable maybe. Well, you won't have to, but depends on, grenade energy back and stuff. So there's a lot of different buffs with all that. So yeah, that was my TWID or whatever, which was not what I expected the length of it to be. But that was a video on this. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.